All right, good evening. Welcome to the September 8th, 2022 Xenia City Council meeting. At this time, we will have an invocation led by Miss Carolyn Bird from the SOS Ministries, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mayor Sarah Mays. If we would all please rise.
So, Father God, in the name of Jesus, Lord, I just want to thank you for who you are. I want to thank you for still being on the throne, Lord. And I want to thank you for the city of Xenia, Lord, that is the city of righteousness, Lord, that we declare it, that it is a city of righteousness. I thank you for this meeting, and I ask, Lord, that you keep this city as a light on a hill, Lord, for people that's broken to be healed, Lord. And we just ask for you to be in this meeting, for the decisions made over this city, Lord. And I just want to thank you that it is a healing city for me, and I want to thank you for all the leadership and all the ministries and all the businesses and just for the hospitality that this city represents, Lord. And I just thank you, Lord, and I ask it all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Carolyn Bird. Thank you, Mayor Mays. At this time, we'll call the meeting to order and start off with a roll call, please.
Vice President Urschel.
Here.
Councilman Scrivens.
Here.
Councilwoman Dean.
Here.
Councilman Branham.
Here.
Councilman Dean.
Here.
Mayor Mays. Here. President Smith.
Present. Next on the agenda is the approval of minutes. This is from our last meeting, which was August 25th, 2022. Minutes are before us. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as written.
So moved.
Moved by Councilwoman Dean. Do we have a second?
One second.
Seconded by Councilman Dean. Any additions or corrections to the minutes? All right, seeing none, can I get a roll call to accept, please?
Vice President Urschel.
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean. Aye. Councilman Branham.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Mayor Mays. Aye. President Smith.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is special presentation. There's none scheduled for tonight, so we'll move on to audience comments. This is the portion of the meeting that anyone in our audience tonight can come up and address City Council. If you would do so, please give us your name and address for the record. Limit your comments 3 to 4 minutes, please. Yeah.
So, good evening, council members. My name is Angela Wilson, and I'm here to support the proposed renovations to Lexington Park. My history with Xenia has been since 1978. I started out with a lady called Chrissy Everidge, and she started a Boys and Girls Club for the kids who met down at Lexington Park 3 days a week. She provided activities out of her own finances. She gave them activities to do. 3 days a week she was down there. It brought in so many kids there. The park was vibrant. My history with Chrissy is that after that, we formed another group supported by 4-H. And we were given 7 students from the community on payroll to provide leadership skills in the park for the kids, activities, sports, and gardening. And we did that for a whole summer. So my relationship with Diamonds and Pro, my relationship with Lexington Park is very heartwarming for me because of the kids. We also had groups come down like the X-Town Steppers, drill team, and drumline, which was requested by the community to perform many, many times. We also had Diamonds and Pearls who came down to the park to perform many, many times, especially when the churches and the Bikers Club would have back-to-school bashes. They would give away book supplies and everything. So Lexington Park has a good history when it comes to helping the kids in the community. Come on, thanks, sir. The families, they still go down there. They have cookouts. We have birthday parties there. I just recently went to one, a birthday party, okay? So I just wanted to definitely let you know that your proposed renovations are definitely needed, and we really appreciate them. However, I always say however, I am a trained playground safety inspector, retired though. And I did go down there because I knew this meeting was happening. So I went down there today and I took pictures. And I saw playground equipment. So as a certified playground inspector, retired, I think you really need to look at that, honestly. I could call many violations on that. I also think that, well, never mind, that's good enough, because one of the gentlemen's here, what's his name? He explained to me why you reduced the parking lot, because some of the people in the neighborhood, and I know a lot of people in that neighborhood because I work with kids in the community, were really, really upset about the reduction of the lot size. They, of course, they felt that you were trying to put them out, out of their park, and that really hurt their feelings. But as we know, it's just a temporary thing. Am I correct? Okay, we hope. Okay, the fencing around the park, I don't agree with that. I'm just so sorry. And then I heard there's going to be some chains put or whatever. I just feel that if you revitalize that park the way it should be, and you bring in people from all over. We had baseball fields there at one time. We had leagues there at one time. Putting in a bigger splash pad. Oh my gosh, you will revitalize that, and they will take care of it. But when you start saying you want to put a fence around that park and you want to chain it up, that's kind of part of our history when we see chains. I don't want to see chains on a park that's in the East End. Okay, so I just want to let you know I do appreciate everything. This is so great. It's been a long time, and I'm so emotional about it. So, and I want to utilize that part more, because people have asked me, when are you going to bring back the drum line? When are you going to bring back the drill team? I said, well, guess what? It's coming back next year. So I appreciate you all for what you're doing, honestly, and I hope you continue to support this proposed project for Lexington Park. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else care to come to the podium at this time?
Good evening, council members. Let me introduce myself. My name is Steve Bayless. I am a product of Xenia. I came out of Xenia High in 1974. The last 16 years I've been in Seattle. And I recently moved back. I got a brother that's ill, cancer, so I had a call in to come back. And the first thing on my plate in coming back were my buddies that wanted to talk about Lexington Park. Let me make this point. Every time I visited home, that's sacred ground to me. So every time I visited home, that's one of the first stops I made when I was back in the area. And I guess I'm speaking on behalf of being a product of Lexington Park. Okay, being a product of Lexington Park meant that, a bit dysfunctional at home. Lexington Park was a sanctuary for me. And in saying that, I found out that I could play basketball. And the reason why it became such a sanctuary to me is because there were individuals, older guys in there. In my crowd, we call them old heads. So, they were there for encouragement. They were there for positive affirmation. They were influential in my life. Y'all know a few, Ben Waterman, to say a few. But the point I'm making about Lexington Park is I deem it extremely vital, even in the condition it's in right now, I deem it extremely vital for dreams, for youth dreams. Okay, the dysfunction in my house led me to Lexington Park, thank God it did, because the dream I had is one day to play in the NBA. Okay, so we were there last week, and I can't remember the representative that was there. He wasn't necessarily talking it down, but he stated something about the vitalness of the park, and I didn't sense that he was thinking it was very vital. I think it's very vital to the community because it was vital to me because I told him that, you know, as this may not be vital to other people, to that community, it's extremely vital because it's where you can go dream. You can go there and dream. If you play on one of those baseball diamonds, you can dream of being a big baseball player, playing on that basketball court. I'm telling you, if you know anything about the history of that court, and I went on to play, and I didn't make it to the NBA, but what that place did was it gave me that refuge that I needed and people that I could trust that got me out of whatever dysfunction was happening down my way. And I told the gentleman that this is where my dinner was delivered every day. Why? Because I knew it was a safe place, and my mother knew it was a safe place. So she said, "Don't worry about it. You go ahead and stay up here." And so I guess what I'm saying is I work with a lot of youth, and it's sad for me to see that they don't have arenas to dream in much anymore. I mean, you look around, you know, one thing that I can't get is I don't see kids out playing anymore. And that's, you know, to me, that's a travesty because I know what they're doing. They're sitting at home and they're in front of that computer screen and they're playing all these fancy games. So I think the vitality of Lexington Park is something that you should consider from a youth point of view. You know, give a lot of the children some place to dream because I know that once it's improved, people will flock there to give their services to make this place vital again. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bayless. Anyone else care to come to the podium at this time?
Ladies and gentlemen of the commission, how are you? My name is Mitchell Waterman. I live in Washington Township, about 17 minutes away from here. I grew up in Xenia also. The only thing I had to tell you is, and it's going to bounce on the heels of what Mr. Bayless said, that was our home away from home. I know this because my mother and father put that park together back in the late 50s. I was a young man at 7 years old, and they would drag me to that park every day, and my father would sweep off the court, bend the crooked basket back and tie it up to a tree, and that's where I learned to play basketball. Mr. Day's uncle, Ted Day, probably the greatest ball player that's come out of Xenia, learned to play there. Mr. Bayless learned to play there. Mr. Ingalls learned to play there. That was the community. Any ball player in Xenia that's worth his weight learned to play at Lexington Park. That was in the evening. My mother started the arts and crafts part of the park in the 50s with her own money when she was working at East High School. I don't know if any of you know where East High School is. It was the old Xenia administration building, school board building. That was a high school. The park is major to me, not because my folks started it, not because I grew up there. It's because I used to teach school here about 10 years ago. And I taught the troubled youth of Xenia. And they all had one thing in common. They knew nothing about their town, and to them, because they were always in trouble, it was a police state. Now, it wasn't peaches and cream when we grew up, but this is where we grew up. And that community helped us develop into professional women and men, that park, because you had 2 educators build that park. And so the right ingredients went into that park. And to simply see it waste away, that hurt me. When my father passed away, it was at Middle Run Baptist, which he was buried. I took my 2 young daughters, who both grew up playing basketball, earned scholarships to college playing basketball from their father, who had learned from his father at Lexington Park. And they looked at me and said, "This is that famous park you talk about, Dad? Grandpa or Grandma used to run? Yeah, this is it." It's a little bit worn, but it's still the place. It's still our place. So I'm glad for everything that we've done together with the commission. I've been with you the whole time with this, and I hope everything turns all right for us and the city and the commission this evening. I'd like to thank you for your time, and thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Water.
All right, who else would care to come to the podium at this time? All right, last chance? No. All right, thank you. Thank you for those comments. Next on our agenda is old business. Our first item in old business is ordinance 2022-32. This is titled a public hearing tonight for approving and authorizing the conveyance of city-owned property at 403 East Main Street in accordance with purchase and sale agreement with Anthony W. Collier and Walter D. Crum. This was introduced by Councilwoman Dean at our previous meeting.
I'd like to move for passage, please.
Thank you. Move for passage by Councilwoman Dean. Do we have a second?
A second.
Seconded by Councilman Scrivens. At this time, I'll open up the public hearing and ask for anyone in the audience who would care to come forward and speak in favor of approving this authorization of city-owned property to speak on behalf, pro, and limit your comments 3 to 4 minutes, please. Right, if anyone in the audience would care to come forward and speak against the approving of the sale of 403 East Main Street, can come forward at this time. All right, seeing no one in favor, if anyone would, of my colleagues have any questions at this time? No? All right, this time I'm...
Yes, Mr. President, can I make a comment? So let me ask our law director, do we have Mr. Merriman, do we have a signed
Purchase agreement?
Intent from the state on the funds that we're looking,
We still have-
remediation funds?
We've not yet received a fully executed copy. Our most recent conversation was a week and a half ago, and nothing was represented to us that there are any issues with that. It's just the bureaucratic process of getting through
Okay,
multiple layers.
but
of
the
state.
understanding is that the state is still intending on providing those funds.
Correct, and I think the development director, even this week, had some conversation with some questions about potential work that we would start doing, and nothing was raised to suggest that the grant funding was not in the works.
Okay, thank you.
And Councilman Urschel, I did put language in the purchase and sale agreement that it's contingent upon
Contingent.
receiving funding.
Correct.
So if for some reason we wouldn't get it, the purchase and sale agreement can be canceled.
Canceled, okay, great, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions? All right, this time I'm going to close the public hearing on this item, and we have a motion and a second, and ask for a roll call, please.
Vice President Urschel.
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Branham.
Nay.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Mayor Bates.
Aye.
President Smith.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next on our agenda tonight is new business. First item is titled an emergency for ordinance 2022-33, amending ordinance 2022-27 to provide appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures for the city of Xenia for the fiscal year ending December 31st of 2022. Mr. Finance Director, could you please elate us, please?
Yes, thank you, Council President. We are requesting additional appropriations this evening for 3 different purposes. The first is related to rewrite of our civil service rules. With the charter changes, it does permit us to make some changes in our civil service rules. We'd like to contract with a law firm who has some expertise in this arena to help with that rewrite. And so we're asking for an appropriation of $10,000 to facilitate that. We're also asking for an additional appropriation of $32,700 for the purpose of purchasing a new street sweeper. Like so many other pieces of fleet that we've brought to council this year, the cost of the fleet, the piece of equipment has increased significantly since we placed or set aside dollars in the budget for this purpose. And so we're asking for an additional appropriation. There's an agenda item later this evening asking for approval of that purchase, and that amount is $32,700. I know there's a typo under the budgetary impact piece there, but the resolution itself is correct. $32,700 that we're requesting for that purpose. And finally, we're requesting additional funds, an additional $24,000 be allotted to pay for increased fees related to credit cards. As we rolled out our new utility billing system and a new credit card provider, we've been extremely successful in pushing more people to that method of payment. So we've had a lot of people taking advantage of that new system and all the new methods that they have for paying their utility bills. With that, though, come additional fees related to those credit card transactions, and so we're asking that an additional appropriation be made for that purpose this evening. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions for the finance director tonight?
Yes, Mr. President. So Ryan, have we considered passing those fees on to the folks that choose that option versus having us pay for the fees?
Sure, we have. We don't necessarily like the idea of pushing people to cash or check. This is a more secure method that's also more convenient for the public, and so these aren't only fees related to credit card transactions online. They're credit card transactions at the window as well, and really there's just a push toward that type of transaction, and so I don't know that it would be in our best interest to pass along those fees to the public. We certainly could if that's council's desire, but I think our intent would be to not discourage people from using those electronic methods because there are some advantages to us in them doing that.
So what's the percentage that we pay per transaction then?
Well, it varies on the different type of transaction and also the credit card provider. So, for example, a Discover card, for example, may charge a different rate than Visa or MasterCard, for example. So,
can you just give us a ballpark figure what we're paying?
3%. I don't have that. No, I mean, I'd hate to take a guess. I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of like 2% or something like that. But I can get you the exact numbers if you want to see. I think some of the things are even flat fees, so it may be a $2.50
per
charge
transaction, right?
Per transaction with a maximum of this amount, and then it starts to kick into a percentage. So there's a different arrangement. I know when we went through this process, there are probably between Venmo and PayPal and all the different credit card options, there are probably no less than 8 different payment in so I don't know all of those off the top of my head, but I can certainly provide them to you in a little more detail. But yeah, some of them are a flat fee, some of them are a percentage, and sometimes in that process we got to choose which we thought would be the most beneficial to the city. So you kind of evaluate what's the average bill that's being paid, and so we arrived at numbers, but it's been probably a year since we made that determination. So, but I can look back and get you specifics.
Okay. Well, this is something we could look at in the future if we felt like we wanted to make that part of the billing as well, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. If council would desire that we pass that fee along to the user, we certainly can do that. That's an option within the arrangement with the service provider.
So are those fees coming out of water funds?
Yes, so essentially they're built into the rate model, which is what we think is probably the better arrangement. That way you're encouraging people to use those methods, and then it impacts the utility rates to some extent, but its impact is fairly minimal in the big scheme of things as far as the water and sewer rates.
All right, thank you. Do you have a question?
Yeah,
with the increase, does that mean that more people are paying consistently, or is it just more people are paying with the credit card? Are we making up that 24,000 somewhere?
I wouldn't say that you're necessarily making it up. I don't know that more people are paying. I think more people are paying through this method, and you know, this method is more costly than our previous credit card provider. The system that we were using before was antiquated and did not meet certain standards that they have for security, and so we really had no choice but to move away from that vendor. And so this new vendor is more expensive, but they are the predominant provider to local governments. So there aren't a whole lot of options when it comes to these types of things. There's a couple of companies that kind of own this arena, so your options are somewhat limited. And so it's both it's a variety of, there are more people paying through these different methods, and the cost per transaction is higher than what we were paying before.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And then clarification from the law director. So an affirmative vote of 4 is for a emergency. I thought it was 5.
It's 4 under the charter, because this is an emergency ordinance for appropriations.
Got it.
It's 4. Emergency ordinance for anything else would be 5.
I got it.
But this is
Thank
4.
you. Thanks for that clarification. Yeah, Councilman Scrivens.
Thank you, sir. With the purchase of the new street sweeper, will the old one be retired, or will it be held in advance as a backup?
Yeah, so that's essentially the reason we have 2 units online today, is because we did that previously. So the 1999 unit would be completely retired and surplused, and we would keep the new unit and the 2012 unit in service today.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for either Mr. Duke or Mr. Merriman? All right. And at this time, I'll seek a motion.
Introduction?
No, this is actually a...
Actual passage?
Yeah, passage as an emergency. Do I have a motion to pass as an emergency?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Scrivens. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Dean. Thank you. Any additional questions? All right, at this time, I'd like a roll call, please.
Vice President Urschel.
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean. Aye. Councilman Branham.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Smith.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Our next item is ordinance 2022-34. This is titled an introduction tonight. This is determining to proceed with improvement of city streets and public ways by the lighting thereof of street lighting district number 3, known as Summerbrook South, for years 2023 through 2027. Mr. Merriman.
Thank you, sir. The Arnold Development Company, which is the developer of record for the Summerbrook South subdivision, has petitioned the city to install street lights and to create a special assessment district to pay the monthly electricity fee per the city's contract with Miami Valley Lighting. On June 23rd, City Council adopted the required resolution of necessity to establish street lighting district number 3 for this purpose. The final step in the street lighting assessment process is the introduction of an ordinance determining to proceed as provided here in this evening. Upon approval, the street light assessment will appear on individual lot property owners' property tax duplicate from Greene County Auditor with an annual fee of $31.06. And then, as indicated, this would be for tax years 2023 through 2027.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Merriman? Okay.
Move for introduction.
Pardon?
I'll move for introduction.
Thank you. Moved by Councilman Branham. Thank you. Our next item is ordinance 2022-35, also titled an introduction. This is amending and retitling of chapters 250, 252, and 254, and enacting chapters 253, 255, and 256 of the Administrative Code as contained in Part 2 of City Government Title 6, known as the Administrative Code of the Xenia City Code. At this time, I'll turn it over to Madam Law Director.
Good evening. This is part 2 of our rewrite of the city's administrative code. This has been reviewed by the Legislative Review and Government Affairs Committee, and they recommended presentation of these proposed amendments to council. These chapters deal with the finance department. Finance is currently 236. It will be renumbered as 250. And really what we tried to do with this rewrite for finance is create the different divisions within the finance department. Currently, the only division that is on, well, there's two divisions on the books. The income tax division, which is actually in the income tax code, and then you have an accounts receivable division. We are creating several new divisions. This was done in consultation, of course, with the finance director, and I'll turn it over to him in a minute. But we are creating within finance an accounting division, and that division will deal with the basic accounting functions, purchase orders, audits, and it will be under the direct supervision of the finance director. We're keeping accounts receivable. We are renaming it Accounts Receivable and Billing Division. It will continue to oversee the utility billing, but it will also now oversee EMS billing, collection of parking fines, any amounts that are due to the city under a contract for services that we have with a third party, such as our fire and EMS contract with CSU. They will be in charge of that as well. There's currently an accounts receivable manager. That position will stay and will remain as the division head of that division. We are adding a tax division, which will include both income tax and the collection of hotel motel tax, which is why we did not specify that this was income tax only. This division, again, will be under the direct supervision of the finance director. And as I said, income tax and hotel motel tax, if there were any other city taxes we imposed, it would flow through this division. We are creating a payroll and benefits division that will also be under the direct supervision of the finance director. That will include timekeeping, payroll processing, and the managing of employee benefits. We are also finally creating her own division for the city clerk's office. She's had a chapter in the codified ordinances, but there's never been anything in it. One of the things that we did in this chapter was we are recommending the creation of a deputy city clerk position. We are not recommending that that be filled at this time, but what that will allow council to do when Ms. Johnson decides she is ready to retire, council can appoint someone into that deputy city clerk's position to give time for Michelle to be able to train them in everything she does. So with this whole rewrite, that's the only new position that we are creating. It's not anticipated to fill that at this time. As we did with the public safety chapter that we brought you last month, we are recommending an effective date on this of January 1st, 2023. That will put all these rewrites to the administrative code. They will all become effective at the same time. The Administrative Steering Committee has been working through the process. We're kind of following council as you approve these with updating job descriptions. So we will have all those in place hopefully by January 1. And Ryan, I will turn it over to you if there's anything you'd like to add.
Well, first I'd like to thank Ms. Fisher for her work on this rewrite. I think this will greatly benefit the city to bring more structure to the finance department and these divisions. I think some of these changes are certainly going to be beneficial from an operational standpoint to clarify some things, to streamline some things. For example, the assessment process in the code will be more clear, and that we won't have to bring those back to council many times throughout the year in order to assess those properties. It'll allow us to do them on a more regular basis. I don't know whether we'll do those quarterly or monthly or what that will look like exactly, but I think at a minimum quarterly we would be taking those assessments to Mr. Graham, which would allow us for a quicker turnaround on some of those things, so that it's less likely that the property will switch hands between the time that the bill was incurred and when we actually collect. So I think some changes like that will be beneficial. There are some other things that just didn't make sense in the code. For example, there was a specific meeting that uncollectibles were to be brought to council for their approval. Where that meeting date came from, I have no idea, but this gives us some flexibility so that if there's some uncollectible debt that we'd like to bring before council for you to consider writing off, that we have some flexibility in what time of year that we can do that. And so I think there were a variety of things in the code that are being updated that are going to bring clarity to certain processes and to make them more efficient. So I think this is a really good thing. There's still a lot of work to be done. I think the funds chapter is something we'll be bringing to council later, which I think will be of great benefit as well to more, well, to really clean up some things in the code that maybe are outdated and haven't been addressed for some time, and to more clearly define which funds are in existence and for what purpose they exist and those types of things. So there's still some more things to be done. I think a rewrite of the utility billing chapter will also be of great benefit, and so that's another thing that is on the horizon as a part of the rewrite in the future. But this is a really good start, and I think it's well overdue, and I appreciate Ms. Fisher's work to get it done.
All right, thank you, Mr. Duke. Does anyone have any questions for either Ms. Fisher or Mr. Duke tonight?
Mr. President.
Yes, Councilman Scrivens.
Thanks, sir. Just want to again compliment the mayor. She chairs the Legislative Review and Government Affairs Committee, and along with Attorney Fisher, it's been hard hammering out new language, and for everybody to approve it and give us their stamp of approval, it means something. And we now have a sensitive information policy, identity theft policy, a purchasing manual policy. We've really updated our whole approach to what I call policy management, and that's a good thing. So, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, Councilman Scrivens. Anyone else? This time I'll seek an introduction.
I'll introduce.
Moved by Councilwoman Dean. Thank you. Our next item, D, is Resolution 2022 AAA. This is determining that a 3.49 acre tract on Burnett Drive is not needed, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Merriman.
Thank you, sir. As detailed in your agenda report this evening, staff is recommending council approve a resolution determining that the subject parcel is not needed for any municipal purpose. When the replat of Lot 23 in the Arnovitz Industrial Park Section 3 was completed in 2000, the .349 acre tract of land between lots 25 and 27 was dedicated to the city for a future extension of Burnett Drive for right-of-way, as the original build-out for the plan for the industrial park envisioned a roadway connection between Burnett and Enterprise. However, this obviously has never happened. And recently the city was notified by officials at CIL Isotope Separations that they had purchased 4 lots within the Industrial Park Section 3 for a future expansion of their facility at 1689 Burnett Drive. With this purchase by CIL, the .349 acre tract has become inconsequential to the city. And staff believes that it makes sense in order for CIL to enhance its ability to further expand its facility and operation, which they're in the process of doing, that council consider conveying this land to CIL. The potential conveyance of land was discussed with the Property Management Committee. That occurred on July 5th. The committee endorsed the conveyance to CIL in exchange for CIL giving the city the needed public utility easements within the tract. So again, it was originally envisioned there'd be a roadway. There's a water and sewer line there. There was no reason to dedicate an easement because the city owned the property. However, as we would convey the property to the new owner, there is necessity to establish an easement so that we have maintenance access for both water and sewer lines there. Staff's recommending council make the required determination of the lack of necessity via resolution tonight that the tract of land is not needed for any municipal purpose. Upon doing so, and later in your agenda, we would recommend introduction of ordinance 2022-36, and this would then, upon approval, would authorize that conveyance of said tract. So again, this measure is necessary to establish that a municipal purpose is not needed, and then later in your agenda you give that other.
All right. Thank you very much. Any questions for our city manager tonight about this? At this time, I'll seek a motion to approve this resolution.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Branham. Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by the mayor. Further discussion? Okay, we'll get a roll call, please.
Vice President Urschel.
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean. Aye. Councilman Branham.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Smith.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. That moves into ordinance 2022-36, title and introduction. This is approving the conveyance of the 3.49 acre tract on Burnett Drive and authorizing a purchase and sale agreement with CIL Isotopes. Anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, again, just reiterating that this measure would actually authorize the conveyance of the land. Wanted to also mention that we have arranged things through the legislation and purchase and sale agreement as we have presented to council. It would allow CIL to advance a driveway project that they're hoping to get in this year on that property. So they would be able to commence with that even short of all of these actions being completely recorded. So that was a concern that they had, and the staff has tried to accommodate that in the way we have structured this. Again, though, just seeking introduction on this measure, you'd have your public hearing and second reading next time, and then we'd finalize it with your approval.
All right, thank you. Questions for Mr. Merriman? And who would care to introduce that?
I'll introduce.
Introduced by Councilman Branham. Thank you. Our next item is Resolution 2022-BBB, authorizing the purchase of a street sweeper for Public Service Department from Best Equipment Company Incorporated through the Ohio DAS Cooperative Purchasing Program. Mr. Merriman, anything else you'd like to add on to that?
Yeah, I just want to give a little more context, in particular for our viewing audience. Over the past several years, council's set an expectation that we would do a better job of refocusing efforts on improving not just the core condition, but the aesthetics of our streets and roadways. To that end, we have significantly increased what we are doing on an annual basis in terms of street sweeping. We were doing well to get one citywide street sweeping done, maybe 2 a year. I just got word on August 31st that we have completed our 3rd round this year, and we should have time to get a 4th round. So we're obviously using this equipment a lot more than we were previously doing. This particular piece of equipment, again, as indicated earlier, is a 1999 unit, significant hours. Our newer unit has already 5,000 hours because we are using it a lot more. We would continue to have both this new one, if authorized, as well as that 2012 unit in service. Whenever we can do 2, we would do 2. We would also have the second unit, the older unit, as a backup if the primary unit goes down. This is not a small amount of money, and with the inflationary factors that we're all fighting with, as demonstrated earlier, there was a need to increase the overall amount available for this purchase. The purchase would come through Ohio DAS through their cooperative purchasing program, so that is a competitive process, so council can go ahead and move forward with the authorization to purchase from that list. Under contract T, STS 235, the not to exceed cost for the purchase would be $302,689.50. That's a lot of money. That's why we don't do this every year. This is 10 years since we've made our last purchase. My understanding is, despite delays in a lot of fleet, this unit would be fairly immediately available to us. So we'd be able to get that into service for the upcoming season next spring. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Merriman regarding street sweeper? Is there just a way we could post that schedule of when streets are being swept?
I'm not.
Pardon?
I'm not sure I know the answer to that. I don't know that there's a really.
A lot of people could try to move their cars out.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Let us think about that and have some more discussion to see if we could maybe.
Something we could work on.
Yeah, because I agree with you. You can tell when the street sweeper's been through and a car's been sitting there. You'll see the pathway around it. And that's unfortunate because it's affecting the effectiveness, obviously, of that unit. So, yeah, that's actually a great point. Let's look into
how to get that word out, but it'd be nice if we could. All right. At this time, I'll seek a motion to purchase the street sweeper.
So moved.
All right. Thank you. Moved by Councilman Dean. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by the mayor. Further discussion? All right. This time, I'll seek a roll call, please.
Vice President Urschel.
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean. Aye. Councilman Branham.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Smith.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Our next item is Resolution 2022-CCC. This is awarding the bid and authorizing the purchase of the de-icing salt for 2022 through 2024. So 3 years, is that correct? 3 years?
It'll be for two purchase years.
2 purchase years?
Yeah.
Okay. From American Rock Salt Company.
Jeez.
This is through the SWO P4G Cooperative Purchasing Program. So, Mr. Merriman, we'll let you fill us in on that.
Yeah, let me give you a little bit of background. The city has for many years participated in what we call the Southwest Ohio Purchasers for Government Cooperative Purchasing Program, or SWAP 4G. We participate in that group. They do collective bidding for a lot of products and materials, but in particular we utilize it for purchase of roadway salt for treatment of winter conditions. This consolidated approach, and most of the municipalities, not all, but most of them in Southwest Ohio, and some from Central Ohio, participate in this program. It allows us to increase our purchasing power through economy of scale and get better unit bid prices. I'd love to say that has resulted in a great number this year, but as with so many other things, inflationary factors have had a substantial impact on the bid this year. We bid out quantities for, and this is the discrepancy, and it's for winters 2022 to 23 and 23-24. So it's actually two purchasing cycles over 3 years. But American Rock Salt was the the lowest of 3 bids, 2 of which were complete, 1 was partial. Again, $85.98 per ton in 22-23 and $93.80 per ton in 23-24. We included in the agenda report the bid prices from the last number of years. You can see this is a substantial increase. So our intent is we've requested the typical tonnage that we purchase, which is 1,500 tons. We'll see what the winter looks like. The salt barn is pretty full right now. We purchased as much as we could under the lower unit price last year. Got the barns as full as we could get them. But again, we want to continue to provide an enhanced service, which we've been trying to focus on in terms of snow treatment the last couple of years. As long as other costs continue to be held in check, we'll commit to this as much as we can. So we're recommending council authorize the purchase, award the bid, and authorize the purchase through Resolution 2022-CCC.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Merriman regarding salt purchase?
Just one, Mr. President, if I could. Thank you, sir. Do we always make a bid for the salt at this season? I mean, do we do a bid in the spring when it's an off-season?
Yeah, that is when the process initiates, and we get the results back, usually high summer, and then we'll schedule. We have some deadlines we have to commit, and we'll schedule that to come before you, just based on when it's appropriate and convenient. So yeah, the process actually began much earlier this year. It's just winnowing its way now down through to our level for council approval.
Thanks, sir. Just one more item, Mr. President. I can recall not too far back when salt was $45. Now it's almost double. It's amazing.
I would argue that hour for hour, mile for mile, this is probably the most expensive service delivery that we provide, because most of your road pavement treatment tends to happen overnight more than during the day. So oftentimes it's overtime. So when you factor in fuel cost, the mileage cost, the material cost, the overtime, it's a very, very expensive service delivery. And again, we try to do a good job, and we've tried to improve what we've been doing even, because our commerce depends on clear streets and safe streets, our public safety, our school system, all need to know that they can get students to school and commerce going to and fro on safe streets. So again, we don't want to go cheap with this, but it is an extremely expensive service delivery.
Now, just one more item. Does this include at all that beat heat pre-treat stuff, or?
No, this is just for the salt. Yeah, so we will supplement the salt depending on weather conditions. We may mix brine and pre-treat with brine to get ahead of winter season systems. We may utilize, if it's extremely cold temperatures, the beet juice is a good additive because it helps the salt to be effective at a much lower temperature.
Freezing point depression.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, once you get below 29, 28 degrees, the effectiveness of salt dramatically diminishes. It's just too cold for that chemical reaction. So we get into those really, really cold events with a lot of snow. You'll see us try to utilize the beet juice as well.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything for Mr. Merriman? All right, if not, we'll go ahead and I'll accept a motion to authorize the purchase of de-icing salt.
Wow, at $85.98.
You make that motion?
Yeah, I'll motion.
All right, motion by Councilman Scrivens. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Dean. Thank you. All right, we'll go to roll call, please.
Vice President Marshall?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays? Aye. President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. One additional item added to our agenda tonight is ordinance 2022-37. This is titled an introduction for amending the official zoning map for the city of Xenia to rezone property at 312 Fairground Road totaling 11.99 acres, more or less from a R1A, one-family residential district, to P1, public and institutional district. This time I'll turn it back over to Mr. Merriman.
Thank you, sir. The subject property is the home of St. Bridget Church and School, and it's situated adjacent to an existing single-family homes, I guess you would call it development, which is located in the township to the south and to the east. New single-family residential subdivision is poised for build-out to the north, and undeveloped property to the west is situated in the township, which is zoned for R1 residential. Just beyond Purcell, to the east, is institutional property owned by Greene County. This is used for park space, and that sits adjacent to the Greene County Fairgrounds. St. Bridget initially approached the city with interest in installing a sign that contains an electronic messaging board function. Internally illuminated signs are not permitted in the subject property's current zoning, which is the 1RA district, but they are permitted in the P1 district, that public and institutional district. The applicant would like to rezone the property in order to have the ability to install such a sign to facilitate future growth and use of their property. Religious institutions and schools are permitted by right in the P1 district, but are only permitted as conditional use in the R1A district. Rezoning would enable the future expansion of St. Bridget without need for public hearing process. Upon review of the proposal, staff found the request to meet 5 of our 7 rezoning approval criteria pursuant to our land development code. Given all the factors, staff is supportive of the measure, and so the item was presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission. That was done on September 1st, and the commission voted in support of recommending the rezoning as presented this evening. So staff is recommending City Council introduce the ordinance this evening so that the matter might be fully considered at your next meeting.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions for City Manager regarding this change of zoning? All right, this time I'll seek an introduction.
So moved.
Moved by Councilwoman Dean, thank you. Next on our agenda is appointed officials reports. We'll start first with Mr. Finance Director, Mr. Duke.
I have nothing else for you this evening.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Duke tonight? All right, thank you. And thank you for that report during our finance budget meeting. All right, appreciate that. We'll go to Madam Law Director next.
I have nothing this evening.
All right, anyone have questions for Ms. Fisher tonight?
Sure, Mr. President. So, Madam Law Director, any more update on the properties that we're pursuing with the State Liquor Board on the licenses on the properties that we were protesting, the state liquor licenses?
The notice of hearings would be sent to the city clerk, and to my knowledge, we have not received any yet.
Okay.
So those hearings have not even been scheduled.
Scheduled yet, okay.
I can tell you one of the criminal cases, and all 3 of those instances, there were criminal charges filed for knowingly selling drug paraphernalia. So far, one of those cases has made it through the courts, and we did get a conviction. So we're waiting for the other 2 to be set.
Was that at the municipal or the common police court?
That's municipal. It's a misdemeanor.
Misdemeanor, okay.
Yeah.
All right,
But we'll keep you updated when we get notice. I know the State Department, the Division of Liquor Control, I know they were operating behind anyway, still trying to catch up from the pandemic, so I'm actually not that surprised we haven't gotten notice yet.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right. Anything else for Ms. Fisher? No? Anyone else have anything for Madam Law Director? All right, thank you very much. And then Mr. Merriman.
Yeah, just a few updates and activity announcements. The splash pad is still open. We've decided to extend that a little further given the warm season we've had, and we'll be doing that week to week. So once we know for certain when that'll be shut down, we'll make that public. We'll be shifting from summer services over to fall services, so folks should start thinking ahead of time about leaf season. That's not too far down the pike. They should check online as we will be scheduling the leaf collection as we get into October, November, December. So again, folks should start to plan ahead for that. We do have 2 activities coming up. Next Tuesday, September 13th, is our final neighborhood night out of the year. That's at Shawnee Elementary School from 5 to 7 p.m. We, of course, want to invite all of the folks who live in the adjoining neighborhoods to come out, but anybody from the community is welcome to come out. We do have free meals provided by One Bistro, partnership with One Bistro. We thank them. So come out, commune a little bit with firefighters, police officers, Xenia Community Schools, Central State University, Charles Young National Monument, all kinds of different local service providers will be there. Just a time to interact and have fun, lots of activities for kids, lots of giveaways as well. Again, September 13th, 5 to 7 p.m. at Shawnee Elementary. Also, our Harvest on Main fall program is scheduled for October 8th. That'll be from 12 to 5 p.m. We've shifted that a little bit later. Instead of a morning into early afternoon, it'll be 12 to 5 p.m. Similar activities, though expanded from last year. We'll have a straw maze, pie eating contest, there'll be a craft show, live music there, all kinds of activities. This is really a family-focused event at the Crossroads here in downtown Detroit and Maine. That'll work in conjunction with the Oktoberfest, which is sponsored by the local chamber subcommittee. The Oktoberfest will run from 12 to 7 p.m. on South Detroit from 2nd to 3rd Street. There will be live bands, live music there all afternoon into the evening. And look for that to be a great community day with more family-oriented activities in the morning. Bring the spouse out in the evening, listen to some live music, and have some fun in the evening. So I want to thank all of our sponsors and partners for those 2 activities and encourage the folks to come out. And that is all I have this evening.
All right. Who has questions for Mr. Merriman?
Hey, Council President. The police chief told me that he wants to be signed up for the pie eating contest, by the way.
I would be out of town.
I've been told that I'm supposed to take the mayor's place to do that this year.
I was told I get to designate somebody, so I feel good about that. I did my job last year.
All right, very good. If no one else has anything for city manager, we'll move on to council comments and reports. I'll start on my right. We'll start with Councilman Branham.
I've got nothing further to add.
All right, thank you. Councilman Dean?
I'm good, thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Dean?
Nothing to add.
All right, Councilman Scrivens?
Thank you, Mr. President. A number of items. Number one, I want to thank Miss Angela Wilson for coming forward. She's a registered sanitarian. She didn't say that, but that's what a health inspector is. So she inspected schools, pools, jails, the whole bit. So when she says something's wrong, believe me, she knows something's wrong. I want to thank Mr. Steve Bayless for his input tonight, Mr. Mitchell Waterman for his input, Reverend Day for his input, and for Mr. Ingalls for his input. As you see, Lexington Park is more than just a square footage of real estate. It has a value that's intrinsic to the community. And I think it's incumbent upon us to fully support that value and then bolster it. So that's my speech for this evening. I had originally planned to introduce a resolution tonight, but I'm going to defer to Vice President for some comments on that. Also, it's a very sad day for our friends in the UK. The Queen Mom, Queen Elizabeth II, has now gone on to her final reward. And I don't know about you, but she was a stabilizing force. Now we have King Charles III, and we have to work with him to keep this world a better place to live. This world can come apart quickly enough if we all sit back and don't do anything. But if each one of us does something, then something good will come out of that. Condolences this evening to the family of a lady. Her name was Cindamere, we called her Cindy Gunn. She lived out on El Camino. Her husband Nigel, he's actually an expat from the UK, and Cindy had some type of mitochondrial disease, and she succumbed to that just recently. And she was big on the youth fishing derby thing. She always wanted to go down to Bellbrook and pay $10 to catch the trout, and then she'd come to Shawnee Park and catch bluegill, and she'd be just as happy. So Cindy, we know you're listening, so God bless you. Also today, I was lucky enough to attend the groundbreaking for the new Warner Middle School for the Xenia school system. I was too happy to be a part of that. And I just want to say to everyone involved, the voters who voted for it, and the architects who drew it up, the teachers, the students, the bus drivers, the ladies in the cafeteria, the parents, we're stepping out. We're moving forward. I can't wait to see what the ribbon cutting of this new building will look like. The mayor was there, and Councilman Urschel was there, and you could just feel the city of hospitality has a new vitality, and we're just glad to be a part of it. Also, we didn't want to forget, yesterday was the superintendent of Xenia Community Schools' birthday. So Dr. Lofton, you're getting older there, mister. So I'll see you tomorrow night. I'll exact my revenge on you tomorrow. Speaking of tomorrow, Xenia Buccaneers play a home game at the Doug Adams Stadium. Game starts at 7. I'd suggest you get there early for a parking spot and to get in. Nowadays, you can't just come and whip out your wallet and get in. You have to buy a ticket online. So everyone check on that so you don't be confused when you get to the stadium. I see we have some new parking meters downtown. That's met with mixed reviews, but I think it's a good thing. We can take your credit card along with your quarter. So they're just in a few strategic spots, and we're not trying to clip everybody, but we did want to update our parking meter system, and I want to thank the finance director for his leadership on that issue.
Well, it wasn't my leadership.
Wasn't all you? Okay, well then I'll thank the city manager then. But it's definitely a new thing. Who was it, Jay? Okay, our assistant city manager.
Chris.
Okay, and Chris. Okay, our engineer. Very good. It's just always.
And Chris said.
And our chief, okay. Chief, hey, you're back at the back door, man. It's just always good when Xenia gets something new. Xenia was established back in 1803, folks. There we are.
Yeah.
And anytime we move forward, we're leaving the past behind. We're cutting the chain, and we go cut the ball off and leave it too. So Xenia's moving forward on every aspect, and I'm just proud to be a part of it. One last thing. I want to ask all the organizations, both profit, non-profit, businesses, and individuals, buy what we call a street pole banner. They put on the side of the street pole where the flags are. You see a lot of the red and blue ones now, but we want your name on one. We want your organization on one. We want your church on one. So with that, Mr. President, I yield back now. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilman Scrivens. Mayor Mays.
Thank you, sir. I just have a couple things. I was able to meet with some folks on the 26th who represent our cycling community and just talk through some different ideas that they have and some suggestions. And I appreciate when people who are participating in the activities in our community step forward and have ideas. I'm always happy to meet with people and see if we can go somewhere with that. On the 27th, I attended the ribbon cutting for the reopening of the Harley-Davidson store, and a great crowd, a great turnout there. And the city was well represented with our fire department there as well, and just to come out and look at the fire truck, and a lot of different people there, so they did a great job. And then, as Councilman Scrivens said, I attended today at the groundbreaking for Warner. It was very exciting. I was not able to attend MVRPC, and unfortunately my alternate was out of town as well, and I believe Brian stepped into my place for me. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you doing that. So we were represented as a community. And my week was cut short with some family obligations, so that is all I have.
All right, thank you. Anyone have anything for the mayor tonight? All right. Thank you for how busy you are with all those little kids you got too. So thank you very much. And this time I'll turn over to Vice President Urschel.
Great. I went to the Greene County Drug-Free Coalition meeting this morning, and as many of you know, at our last council meeting, we passed a moratorium on the establishment of any additional drug inpatient or outpatient drug treatment facilities in the city pending review of our current zoning rules. So I was encouraged by the broad spectrum of folks who were participating in the Drug-Free Coalition. They've been active for the last 2 years in the county. and have a number of organizations from Xenia that are represented there. One of the requests I made from them was that if they could assist us, not only in our municipality, but the other municipalities and townships and villages, to give us some counsel, as we may have new treatment facilities want to come into our city area, and also give us some feedback as well on our proposed zoning rule changes. And so they nominated a representative to assist us with that, so I appreciate them doing that. We also were able to, we had a meeting at the Emerge Trade and Recovery Center and got a tour of the facilities, and they did get approval of their plans from the county at this point, so they're going to start modifications. They have all of their trade businesses are present and operating out of that facility right now, but they're going to start with the looking at the first quarter next year to open the men's recovery center, the second quarter the women's recovery center, and then the third quarter will be for those youth that are transitioning out of the foster care system to be able to go as well. And their plans are to have a residential treatment and training in 5 different trades. And so anyways, great things are happening, and it's a difficult thing to transition a non-residential facility into a residential facility. So this is a big step forward to get their plans approved by the county at that level. And then, anyways, I want to also say I appreciate everyone who came and spoke on behalf of Lexington Park tonight. We started having community dialogue last May, and I can say over the last year and a half, this has been the most discussed item from the community to come in terms of people coming and representing concerns and desires for change of any specific, any other item that we've had over the last 18 months. And we had a community night out, had great participation that night in terms of folks giving us feedback. Got a community group that's stood up and says they want to help us with and have even started collecting funds now for some improvements of the park and some representation on that. And some work has started at the park, but I know sometimes it's difficult for our city staff. One individual speaking to the staff is just one individual. It's not the council. So I've worked with a number of the other council members to come up with a list of intent of council for improvements on the park, and I'd like to read that off. And if I may, Mr. President, ask us to have a vote on the council for the intent of council on this. And then, as I discussed with our city manager, to have the city come back and status us at the next council meeting and ongoing meetings as to which of those items are have already been are on budget and are in works. Those are on budget but may not have got started in terms of what the time frame would be on those. And then those that are on this list that are not within the current budget or plans, and get an estimate from the city staff as to what the cost would be. So I'm not looking to incur any additional cost on council tonight, but just so that we can, as a council, speak back to the city staff and avoid confusion there in terms of specific improvements to the park. And this is for this fall timeframes what we're looking at, and looking forward to working with the community group for some additional improvements coming in next spring as well too. So let me go ahead and Mr. President, if I may, read this intent of council recommendation, and if at your pleasure, if we could have a vote on that. Sure. It is the intent of council to pursue the following improvements in Lexington Park this fall. Transition of the basketball courts to 2 high school regulation courts with new poles, backboards, and hoops. Complete resurfacing and lining of the courts with commemorative names at courtside as provided by the Lexington Park Group. Install fencing around the courts. Complete asphalt topping and parking lot lining at the north parking lot area. Erect a park sign with park rules. Erect a parking lot barrier that may be used as needed at the close of park operating hours between dusk and dawn. Install grills at each of the 2 shelters. Install benches at the playground area. Install a walkway from the parking lot to the playground area. Install a drinking fountain at the park. Install split rail fencing around the parking lot area. The council requests a status at the next council meeting as to which of these items are currently in work, which are planned with current funding, and which will require additional funding and funding estimates.
All right, thank you very much. All right, would you like to make that a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make that a
How much is
motion.
all this gonna cost?
That's what we're requesting. Yeah, we've already allocated funds from the council. So what I'm requesting is, of this list, which ones are currently funded with the funds that have been, and then an estimate from the city as to any additional funds needed. So we're not obligating ourselves to that, but just to get an estimate for which I.
So we're just voting to get an estimate for
Correct.
these things, that's it?
Right, and to find out which ones are actual and which ones will require additional
I
funding.
think from previous meetings, the only things that are underway is the fence, the split rail fence around it. The basketball courts, they've been sealed. The parking lot's been demolished, right? And smaller to mitigate the risk of individuals going and hanging over at the tree line and loitering, I shouldn't say loitering, but doing illegal activity. I just don't see where we're going with this. Like I thought the whole intent was, hey, we're gonna put up the fence, we're gonna put up the gate, and then we're gonna check and basically have a status update of, hey, is there more burnouts going on in the basketball court before we continue to put more money and that sort of thing towards this. Not that I'm saying that I'm against this, but I think our whole idea was that we were going to mitigate the security issues that we were having there of individuals.
I'm just asking for a status right now on these items. Clarification on each of these items. I didn't say a time, but if you want to amend the motion, you can. But the motion, as I'm putting forward for intent of council, is that these are items we would like to see accomplished, and get clarification from the city which ones are currently in action. I'd like to hear the city staff tell us that, okay? Specifically, I think there may be more in action than what you stated. So let's just let the city staff come back and share that with us in 2 weeks. Let us know which ones that they have planned and the incremental time frame that they have that planned. And then which of these that we've listed here that we've gotten feedback from the community are not currently planned because of funding, and just what a potential cost of that would be. So that's what the motion is for us to look as an intent of council, and so that this would not be any specific council person requesting that this would be the council.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
If I may, the request as made is certainly fine. We can accommodate that fairly quickly and provide maybe a one sheet that would delineate the status of projects in motion and the costs. Some of the items we have currently in process have come in under budget, a couple a little over budget, so we can give you a report on that. And then for some of these other items, I think we can give you at least an estimate on what the likely cost is. In the end, there is clearly not consensus with council as to what the overall vision and direction of the park is. It would be beneficial for the staff to understand what the majority will of council is. Some of these things we're getting to the point in the season we won't necessarily be able to accomplish this year, but we're beginning to build out our work program for next year and budget for next year. So it would be important to understand your will with that. The only other thing I would add, I know it's the heart of all of you that you want to provide the best possible recreational amenities in our community. A lot of the improvements that need to be made at Lexington are similar to improvements that need to be made at most of our community parks. Replacing playground equipment, as you well know, because we've recently done that, that's $250,000.
Sure.
And that's probably before price increases this year. So we really are in need of not just a vision for Lexington Park, but for all of our neighborhood parks. So one thing to keep in mind is that we will be starting our next plan process. We've already started that this fall. there should be some very intentional conversation with community members and other stakeholder groups about the direction of all of these neighborhood parks, including Lexington Park and where we're going. So that certainly is part of what we intend on pursuing with the companies.
And I understand that, and we do have a motion on the floor, and I'm not debating what you're saying, but if you look back in council minutes over the last 2 years, we have not had any more comments from anyone in the audience that beats Lexington Park. It is on the agenda, it is in the comments almost on a regular basis. And I think what Councilman Scrivens, Urschel, and I are bringing to the table is just some definitive benchmarks.
Which I believe are fairly modest.
Right.
These are not $250,000 playground equipment or installation of other things, or even things that would cross the boundary of neighborhood versus community parks. These are just some very tangible improvements that are going to facilitate the park that I think as we look at the costs are going to find out would be very, very modest.
Yeah, and again, to reiterate my point, we can do that. I think that's a wise thing to do. My only counsel is you may well have groups from other neighborhoods with the very similar dynamics that come forward, and there is not budget capacity to do this for every park.
Right. But if I remember right, we waited in the spring to do any action because there was a grant application put in by the Lowe's Foundation that denied our request. So we said we'll have to come back to the city to see what we can purchase if that grant failed, and it did. And we have allocated funds in our parks program from the ARPA money. I think it's time that we release a little bit of that. And all we're asking for is city staff to give us a tangible timeline and an estimation of what some of these improvements, so as a council, we can vote on it. Because as far as I'm concerned, put it on record who's sitting up here that supports Lexington Park. That's all we're asking for.
Mr. President, if I could. I purposely didn't present this resolution because I didn't want the blowback that I knew I would get. But I'm in full support of every line item in this resolution. We need actionable action. People need to see their tax dollars at work. They don't want to hear about it. They want to see about it. And that's what these people are here tonight. They're here to see about it. And in terms of security, I'd like the chief of police to come up here and speak on the security at Lexington Park. That seems to be a lingering issue that needs to be put to bed. Chief, could you spend a minute and speak on the security at Lexington Park, please?
That's not really appropriate.
Now, this is the horse's mouth here. This ain't hearsay.
What security issues do you want me to address?
Ask Councilman Brenham. He seems to be...
I'm just asking, so there was videos going around social media, correct, sir, that showed individuals doing reckless behavior on the basketball court. Tons of, probably 4,000 or 5,000 people that was out there partying, you know, doing the donuts with kids running around, that sort of thing, which was kind of before this whole thing, you know, this kind of kicked this whole thing off, I feel like.
I wouldn't say there's 4,000 or 5,000. There has been some.
400 or 500.
Okay, there has been some reckless behavior doing donuts and stuff with people in the middle of the cars as they are doing donuts, and they're using that parking lot area for that type of behavior. And where those individuals are from, I'm not sure, but we do have to have some type of control. We don't want to have people get hurt by that reckless behavior doing the donuts and the spin outs in the cars and stuff. So that's one of the major issues that we do have up there.
Which is why we spent the $50,000 to do the fencing, correct? Which you voted against.
Well, and there have been burnouts on the basketball court too. So if you put money into those courts, we have to be able to keep those vehicles off of the courts.
Right.
So the fencing would be to keep the vehicles off of the courts and stuff.
And we talked about two flavors of the fencing. One is the fencing around the parking area, and also the fencing around the basketball courts.
The vehicles driving through the gardens out there and doing donuts in the field and stuff, that's an issue. That's creating issues in the park as well.
So have you seen that? We had a lot of that in the spring.
Yeah, there was, it was probably in the spring, we had the guy on a four-wheeler up there doing, going through the gardens up there and doing donuts and stuff.
Right. Have we seen much of that here this fall with the school coming back?
I'm sorry?
Have we seen much of that kind of activity since the schools have come back here in the fall?
We haven't got any reports up there lately with that type of behavior. I know we met with some people from Central State to talk about the large parties that they have thrown up there, the neighborhoods, or people coming in from other areas throwing parties up there and stuff. We've talked to them about that.
Chief, also, could you address the vandalism? Is there a level of vandalism that's unacceptable?
I haven't seen any reports come through lately as
So
of
we can put that to
vandalism.
bed then, about the vandalism.
I'd have to go back and look through our pass-alongs and our reports, but nothing stands out in mind right now.
What about the crime, sir? Is there a crime problem in Lexington Park?
I mean, there has been drug activity up there.
I'm talking about crime, I ain't talking about drugs, I'm talking about crime. Maybe. Drugs is a personal thing. Knucklehead wants to do drugs, that's their business.
I'd have to go back and look through our reports and stuff. Nothing stands out in mind.
So I think, all right.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate you speaking to the issue that I
Right
asked.
now, we have a motion, and we're seeking a second.
I'll second.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any amendments or modifications?
To be clear, this is just to basically get a report.
That's correct. That's correct. This is
Just
for
a
a
status
report
update.
on these items from the city staff at the next council meeting.
Can we get a report
And
on all
I'll
the-
just
all the
clarify
parties?
from a legal standpoint, it's not a resolution, it can't be. Any ordinance or resolution has to be presented in writing.
Right.
This is just a
I would
sense of the
view
council.
this more as a motion of direction. Procedurally, you as council have the right to give direction to city staff. You called it a motion of intent, but from how you described it, it sounds more like it's just direction to city staff. We want a list of potential improvements at the park, what's currently being worked on, what are the cost of other items.
Right.
Till you know the cost, you don't know. Some things
Correct.
may have to be competitively bid, there may be prevailing wages. But yeah, you as council, once you have those numbers, would then have to vote on making any of those purchases.
Right. And that's not this vote here.
Yes, but I just wanted to be clear, this is not a formal resolution, and it actually sounds more like a motion of direction.
Procedural motion.
All right.
Councilwoman Dean, I agree with what you're saying at some point. The only reason I'm comfortable voting on just this one right now is because we have allocated dollars to it, and I would like to know where we stand with it.
All right.
But I don't disagree with that at another time, absolutely.
Guess I don't get why this needs to be brought up in front of the council. Why couldn't this just been an email saying, hey Brent, why can't you update us on this project? And then it gets sent out to us.
Well, Cody,
We've been kicking the can.
we've been working on this for 18 months, okay? And
We either gotta
we can
move
probably
it
work
or-
on it for another 18 months, but we have some things in motion and some things that aren't. And you're representing the entire city, as am I, not a portion of the city or a political party or a subdivision of it.
For sure.
And we've had so many people come and ask us about these things that we owe it to the folks that elected us to give them some response, okay? And if you think that we could have just done it with the email, great, but I'm doing it here, and let's get our answer and get some feedback in 2 weeks, okay? And if you don't want any feedback on it, then you can vote no, because you don't need any feedback. But then we need to let people out there that have been coming and coming and coming and asking us about why we believe that we don't need any feedback, we don't need to do this. Because I'm telling you, we've had more community requests on this than any other item over the last 2 years.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend the debate and call for a vote.
All right, we have a motion to call for the question. This time we'll get a roll call, please.
Vice President Urschel.
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Branham.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Smith.
Aye. Thank you. Also, just to bring an update, besides chairing Planning and Zoning, also Chair Budget and Finance. I'd like to thank Vice President Herschel, Councilman Dean, City Manager, Finance Director, and Assistant City Manager for your time tonight. We've been in a meeting since 4:30 on Budget and Finance with some items that we'll be bringing to Council probably in the next meeting or in October. Also, I chair Planning and Zoning, which met last September 1st. We had 2 items on the agenda. One was a public hearing for the 312 Fairground Road, which was voted on tonight. The second item was new business, which was a PUD final development plan to allow construction of a 64,000 square foot indoor court sports facility and a stadium bubble enclosed 99,000 square foot soccer track facility located at 651 Taylor Drive. That is property that is operated by Athletes in Action. So there is a lot of interest in our community. I'm very thankful for that. Those both items were endorsed by Planning and Zoning. There is a lot of interest in Xenia. This is a great community. A lot of people want to live here. As you can see, we've got some housing developments ready to just burst. So I can't thank everyone enough for being here tonight, for your comments. Those that are watching tonight, thank you very much. Thank you for your support of our city. Live here, buy here, spend your money in Xenia. It is really appreciated by your local merchants. So if we have no executive session scheduled for tonight, so at this time I'll seek a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by the mayor. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Dean. Thank you. Can I get a roll call, please?
Vice President Herschel?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean? Aye. Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor May? President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.